Welcome to the Prophecy Club. Our topic today is your biggest problem. In other words, as we look into the future, what's the number one thing that we need to be thinking about? Now, obviously, that you have Jesus in your heart, that your name is written in the book of life, you're going to live eternally with Jesus. That's not really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, in other words, in terms of preparations, the thing. Like, for example, I started to talk about all of the panic buying that is going on all across America right now on all of the Chinese goods. Because it seems like everybody's been listening to Prophecy Club because I've been telling you that the prophecies say that there is just going to be a stoppage of shipping. And I think it's more than just China not shipping America anything. I'm about to show you. I think that there's about to be a lot of problems, and all has to do with shipping. Okay. First of all, what is our biggest preparation problem? Is it air? Is it water? Is it food? Okay. So there's what they call the 3 threes. You got to have air or you're dead within 3 minutes. You got to have water or you're dead within 3 days. You got to have food. You can last about 30 days without food. Now, some of us might think we can go longer, and maybe we can, but in general, it's about 30 days. And I want to remind you about these prophecies. And the thing I want to concentrate on today is food. 38 prophecies say suitcase nuke's going to hit us. So for that, I'll send you EMPShield.com. Promo code prophecy 17 say a meteor, tsunami, and earthquake is going to split America. 17, though, here's my point. 17 say that there's going to be a food shortage. For that, I'll send you josephkitchen.com. 11 say the dollar's going to fall. You can read the rest of them. But right now, let's talk about prophecies concerning China. Now, I talked about this the other day. I'm not going to go into it, but the point is the stock market can go up like crazy, or as we can see, it can go down like crazy. Now, if it starts down, what's to say it's going to ever come up? Or what's to say it's ever going to stop going down? That's the reason I'll send you to 800-200 gold. Talk to these folks. Doesn't hurt, doesn't cost anything. Call them, especially if you've got an IRA or 401k. Or if you want to put some of your cryptocurrency into a 401k, there it is. Those are the numbers. Also, this is a big thing today. I haven't been talking much about Joseph Kitchen, but I just pulled this out of my refrigerator. This is my loaf of bread, whole wheat bread that I made. It's in my refrigerator. And the reason it's not all there right now is because I ate it. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more slices there. Now you might be saying, what's that hole in the middle? I don't know. I don't know. But that's part of making homemade whole wheat bread for yourself. There's a little bit of a learning curve to it. It takes a little bit of learning to learn how to make the bread. And you can, there's all kinds of recipes. You get tired of one way, make it a different way. Okay? You want more salt, you want less salt, you want more oil, you want, okay, you can make it. You make it, kind of like the old saying, you made your bed, now you got to live or got to sleep in it now. Well, here, you made your bread, you get to eat it. But I make the bread the way I like it or the way my wife likes it, and we eat it. Now, this typically is going to be that is one meal just by itself. You don't have to add any butter or honey or jelly or make a sandwich out of it. That's one meal right there. And it takes me about 10 minutes to make a loaf. What you do is, here, let me show you. Okay, so you go to josephkitchen.com. I'm going to walk you through it here. You buy a machine package. That's the gizmos to actually take the wheat berries, grind them into flour, put the flour into a bread machine, along with 5 other ingredients, push a button, and 2 hours or 40 minutes later, you have, boom, one of these, okay? Whole wheat, homemade whole wheat bread. Then you decide how much food you want. You want food for 1 year, 2 people 1 year, 4 people 1 year, 6 people 1. I recommend you get this one because when people find out you got food, they're going to be knocking on your door, and you want to be able to have food to feed them. You don't want to have to fight them off. You want to have plenty extra food. josephkitchen.com. right now they're offering site-wide free shipping, which is a big discount. So, josephkitchen.com. When I started eating, lost weight, lowered my blood pressure. I always eat a slice before I go play racquetball. Comes in plastic pails, good for years, nitrogen infused. Most of you are the long-term storage foods, about $9,000 to feed one person. Joseph's Kitchen, which God told me, is God's family food. About $1,000 a person per year. I don't think you can beat that in place. josephkitchen.com. Anyway, go and check it out. All right. So let's get back to China. China apparently is prepositioning equipment with plans to attack America from within. They want to be the new America. Now, I talked about this with my wife this morning as we were getting ready. And I want to talk to you about it today. This is the most questioned of all of the messages given to Dumitru Duduman. This is 1996. I prayed and went to bed, and I was still awake when suddenly I heard a trumpet sound. A voice cried out to me, "Stand." In my vision, I was in America. Now, even though he was in Romania, all of a sudden he was seeing himself as he was in America. I walked out of my home and began to look for the one who had spoken to me. As I looked, I saw 3 men dressed alike. That would be the angels. 2 of the men carried weapons. One of the armed men came to me and said, "I woke you to show you what is to come." And he said, "Come with me." I didn't know where he was being taken, but when we reached a certain place, he said, "Stop here. Stand there, don't move, and look," he continued. "You will see what they're saying and what they're preparing for America." Now, this is what China and Russia is preparing for America. I'm going to show you the controversy, the question here in just a minute. As I was looking, I saw a great light. A dark cloud appeared over it, and I saw the president of Russia, a short, chubby man. Now, I don't think you'd call Putin a short, chubby man. Maybe short, maybe not even short, but definitely not chubby, who said he was the president of China. Now, that's the first question. Is this talking about Russia being a short, chubby man, or is this talking about China being a short, chubby man? Well, neither one of them is short. Neither one of them is chubby. And the last 2, he also said, were from someplace I understand. However, they gathered they were part of Russian-controlled territory. Then the men stepped out of the cloud. The Russian president began to speak to the Chinese one. "I'll give you the land with all the people, but you must free Taiwan and the Americans. Do not fear, we will attack them from behind." Then a voice said to me, "Watch where the Russians penetrate America." Now, what is the voice? See, this is part of the question. What is the voice that's speaking to Dumitru? Because was this the Chinese president? Was this the Russian president? Or was this one of the angels? It sounds like, at this point, it's one of the angels, but hang on. Then I saw the words being written, Alaska, Minnesota, and Florida. Then the man spoke again. Now, see, that's the question. Is this Russia, China, or is this the angel talking to him saying this? Then the man spoke again and said, "When America goes to war with China, the Russians will strike without warning." It sounds like it's the angel, doesn't it? But again, there's a question. Now, for just a minute, let's say it is the angel talking. That means, watch where the Russians penetrate America. That's probably from the angel. Alaska, Minnesota, and Florida, and that makes sense. In other words, Alaska down from the north, Florida up from the south, and Minnesota right in the middle of the country. That makes sense. Then the man spoke again and said, "When America goes to war with China," is that what we're doing right now? Well, China just said, basically, if you want to go to war, we'll go to war. But we are not bowing down to America. That's essentially, so right now, really, Trump has called their bluff and said, "You've been cheating for years, and we're not let you cheat anymore." And China is saying, "Oh, yes, you are. We've been cheating for years, but that's what we do. That's who we are, and we're going to keep it up, and you're not going to stop us." Well, I think that's what you call the start of a war. Okay, so it may be, I said it may, but I'm going to show you this question here in just a second. It may be that this is the angel talking. When America goes to war with China, the Russians will strike without warning. But that's the question. Let's go on. The other two presidents spoke. Now, this is clearly the angel, or clearly not the angel speaking here. The other two presidents spoke. We too will fight for you. Each had a place already planned as the point of attack. All of them shook hands and hugged. When they all signed a contract, one of them said, "We're sure that Korea and Cuba will be on our side too. Without a doubt, together we can destroy America." The president of Russia began to speak insistently. Why let ourselves be led by the Americans? Why not rule the world ourselves? They have to be kicked out of Europe too. Then I could do as I please with Europe. The man standing beside me asked, "This is what you saw. They act as friends, and they respect the treaties made together." In other words, that's the angel talking. But this is the really big controversy. But everything I've shown you is how it will really happen. What he's really trying to say here is all of it before that's all bunk. That's just what they're planning, but it doesn't happen that way. But the question is this part in the middle, watch where the Russians penetrate America, Alaska, Minnesota, Florida. When Russia goes to war with China, the Russians strike without warning. Is that from the angel? Because this seems to say it's not. So I don't know. I mean, I prayed over this, and I'd call Michael Bolday, his grandson, and ask him, but I'm pretty sure he wouldn't have the answer either. Now, you remember what You Be Ready was told. There was three things. First, a war of words, a war with bombs, people running and scared. This seems to be the war of words between America and China. So, is the war with bombs between America and China just around the corner? It appears so, but I don't have an exact prophecy that tells us the timing. Let's go on now. I'm the protector of America. America's sin has reached God. He will allow this destruction, for he can no longer stand such wickedness. All right, now hang on. You and I, being Christians, we look at America and we say, well, America's not all that bad. I mean, why would God destroy America? Okay, but wait a minute. Let's look at it through the CNN, MSNBC, CBS, ABC. Look at it through their eyes. The Wall Street Journal. Let's look at all the people protesting, the communists, that every other word is a curse word, filthy. They're talking about assassinating a Trump. Okay, they think that getting rid of him would be okay. Okay, so God's not just looking at the Christians. He's looking at then let's talk about 21 million people that chose to violate our laws against our laws that have come in as illegal aliens. Well, don't you think that God is weighing all of their sin on the balances too? They live here, yeah. So he's weighing the sin of all of the people that live in the 50 states. God, however, still has people that worship him with a clean heart, and as they do his work. He's prepared a heavenly army to save these people. Now, he showed that heavenly armor, or that army to, Bree Keaton, and I think it was Maurice Sklar too. 2 or 3 people. All right, let's go on. As I looked, a great army, well armed and dressed in white, appeared before me. Do you see that? The man asked. This army will go to battle to save my chosen ones. Then the difference between the godly and the ungodly will be evident. Now, I've told you many times, I don't think that this is saying there's a pre-trib rapture. I think that what you call the rapture is what I call the trip to the marriage supper of the Lamb, which takes place about 4 months before Armageddon. As the bombs come down, we go up, and I've talked about that in Scripture many times. So let's go on. Now let's go to another one I think that will peel your eyebrows back. Back in 22, Dana Coverstone had this dream. When the dream started, I was standing in the port of Los Angeles. There was a sign. In the shipping yard where the larger containers as in shipping, okay, were being lifted up the ships, and I saw 8 jet black containers sat on the ground with 15 feet apart, and they were pristine, clean, with large Chinese letters in black as well. The letters were about 5 foot by 5 foot, with a brown background that really stood out, almost like 3D on the containers. It was light outside, and I could also see a large clock tower that seemed to be high above the shipping facility, And it was exactly on 3 o'clock. All right, now, the times that I have covered this, I don't think that this 3 o'clock is just nothing. I don't think it's just something we can ignore. I think it is not a time, but I think it is a date that this happens. Now, what does the date mean? I think we have been saying, and I still think it's right, I think that the 3 o'clock has to do with the month of the year that this is taking place. Okay, well, what month would that be? It would be January, February. 3 would be March. Okay, hang on. Could it be, let's back up and look, could it be that the 8 jet black containers offloaded, is actually in March of 2025? Oh, yeah, it could be. Okay, let's go on. Explore this out. It was exactly 3 or exactly March, and all 8 doors of the containers began to bang and shake violently. So the question is, could that be taking place in March of 2025, as in last month? It could be. Could be just planned a long time ago, and it just could be that this part has already happened. Suddenly the doors open, and a man in military equipment rode out of the first container on a very large green dirt bike. It had leather saddlebags on both sides of the seat and very large knobby tires. The helmet came off the head of the man on the motorcycle and stepped off the bike after putting the kickstand down. He was oriental and began screaming towards the trucks and pointing in different directions. He was very, very angry, and his face was very, very red, and suddenly checked his watch and put his helmet on and got back on the motorcycle and started it. The clock struck 4. Okay, hang on. January, February, March, April. Today's April 11th at 2:47 p.m. as I'm recording this. Could it be that this is taking place now? Absolutely. Could it be that China has now reached the point to where they see that not only are they attacking us with cyber attacks, perhaps you've heard that, but that they are already planning attacks on America right now? Could be. Could be this is now in progress. The clock struck 4, and there was a deep bell that rang, and the earth shook for a moment. Could that be associated with the Great Lakes opening up all the way down to the Gulf of America? Then out of each of the containers came about 25 soldiers on the same kind of motorcycles with saddlebags and AK-47s over their backs. At this point, I could see RPGs, and lots of ammo and weapons in those saddlebags. When the first soldier took off out of the port, the rest of them followed and went in different directions. Once they were outside the fence line, the scene changed. I was hearing news reports and seeing newspaper headlines with serious-faced reporters announcing deaths all over the country in both rural and metropolitan areas. The reports were about water systems being poisoned in various places around the country. Oh no, Stan, this will not be happening now. Well, wait a minute. You be ready, said. The show has begun. In other words, these prophecies, these warnings, not just a few, are now starting to come to pass. So could this be taking place right now? You better, as they say, better bet your life it could be. Then I saw headlines. Entire communities poisoned through the water supply. Reporters were telling people to drink nothing but bottled water, or water they knew was not contaminated by the local water supply. It was affecting both larger and smaller communities, but not every community. So that reminds me of a prophecy Leslie gave, that the same thing, that we were being poisoned in our city water supplies, and everybody was being told to drink bottled water. Now let's go on. It was impacting the West more so than other places in the U.S., according to the reports. And they were announcing that there were National Guard units, fully armed, watching water facilities. Thousands were reported as having died. Now, see, if this had happened during the Biden administration, would he put National Guard units out, fully armed, watching water facilities? No, he'd have probably just too bad. Oh, thousands of people, you guys dying. That's too bad. Trump? Yeah, I think Trump would do something about it. Thousands were reported having died, and hospitals were full of heavy poisoned people getting medical treatment, and FEMA centers were being set up in those regions. An emergency broadcast announcement was running along the bottom of the TV screens, and monitors stating that boiling water, hope you're listening, it's important, boiling water was not an effective way of making any water safe. In other words, if it's a bug, a virus, or if it's a virus or a bacteria, boiling, no problem. But if it's a poison, let's say snake poison or something like that, you can boil it. It's not going to hurt it. It won't get rid of it a bit. Okay. Trying to let's say, well, I think you get the point. Let's go on. Then I saw a clock tower above a municipal water supply, and its hands pointed to 4:05 in the afternoon. Okay, so is that talking about like maybe even the first week in April this is taking place, as in, yeah, about right now? I mean, what if all of a sudden we start hearing that our water facilities are poisoned? Then we'll know this is taking place this year, but hopefully this doesn't come to pass for several more years. But we don't know that. Let's go on. So I'd recommend you go to prophecyclub.com. Right now, the ones that we have in stock is Alexa Pure. And go there and you can place an order. We got them in stock. Alexa Pure. Let's go on. I saw 4 lines of lights that seemed to be coming out of the border that reminded me of a video of the Ho Chi Minh Trail. It seemed that many people were coming from the border, but in a very organized way. Okay, this has not happened. This is apparently... Well, see, for them to get across the border right now, it'd have to be in an organized way, because Trump they're not doing it unless they are in like some kind of a big caravan. They moved north hundreds of miles from California into Texas with the lights bright enough to be seen from space. They all stopped moving at once, and when they did, smaller light trails from within the U.S. started moving towards the big light, where the movement had stopped. It was like watching moths drawn to a flame, and the source light kept getting bigger and bigger, and then it flashed once all the smaller lights were attached. It went dark for a few moments, then pulsed, then exploded, and the light was spread in hundreds of miles beyond the source of the explosion. The clock showed 4:10. Okay, well, now, if that's like the middle or the first or second week in April of this year, we're going to know about this pretty soon. If not, hope it's another year. Small embers of flames were coming down all around the clock, but not catching the ground on fire, although it looked like it should have. There was sudden silence that permeated the atmosphere, and then I saw the clock strike 4:15, and there seemed to be an alarm going off across the nation. I hope it's not this year. The scene changed, and I saw churches of all shapes and sizes were surrounded by mobs of people who were screaming. Could that happen right now? Look, they're burning Teslas. I think there's a lot of people angry in our nation. I saw churches of all shapes and sizes surrounded by mobs of people who were screaming. They chanted hostile threats, which were staying some distance away from each church, around 150 feet. Inside the churches, I could hear people leading prayers, others in prayer, but the prayers had no power or authority, and the crowds kept surging. Suddenly, in at least 5 locations, I saw arrows fired into the crowd from the roof of the churches. I think these are spiritual. Each of those arrows scattered the hostile crowd as they impacted only the pavement, and the protesters fled. As I watched the people scrambling, I noticed there was an archer on each of those church roofs, and it appeared to be the very same man firing the arrows in each location at precisely the same time. The alarm had been going off from the clock during this entire time, and it stopped as the man began walking towards me. This is the angel that speaks to him. It was the man I see in the dreams, and he had a quiver full of sheer white arrows with extremely sharp points. Over his shoulder, from over his back, he pulled a very large, long bow, put the bottom of it on the ground. He stood silent for a few moments, surveying the area, but turned to me and said, "There must be precision in your prayers. From this point forward, absolute precision to counter the noise and the violence that will be aimed at the body," speaking of the body of Christ. "The church must remember that it is not by might, not by power, but by my Spirit that will help you walk straight through the battle. There must be precision and power in your prayers. There must be. The war has arrived." Well, that's straight out of You Be Ready. Okay, the show has begun, okay? The war has arrived, and those awake are on the front lines now, and you will never be able to get away from that line. That's kind of what You Be Ready said. Absolute precision is required in your prayers. After saying this, he quickly put an arrow into the bow and shot it straight up in the air. The arrow never came back down, but he kept looking into the air where he shot it, and he never looked back at me. Remember to be precise, as it matters more than ever right now. Then he disappeared before my eyes. In 2021, I started making bread, and long story short is I believe God showed me that wheat is God's famine food, just like it was famine food back in the 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine, days of Pharaoh and Joseph. And I believe that that's what God has planned to feed his people. And you get it by going to josephskitchen.com. 3 steps. First, you want to get a machine package. Second, you want to order 6 ingredients and watch some videos, download the recipes to be able to make the bread. josephskitchen.com. Most of your long-time storage food, emergency food, all of that, typically are talking $9,000, $10,000 to feed one person for a year. Joseph Kitchen can show you how to do it for around $1,000 a person, and your kids will actually eat it, and it's actually good for you. Here's some bread that I made. In my case, I lost weight, lowered my blood pressure, gives me more energy. I eat a morning, slice in the morning, slice in the afternoon, always a slice before I go play racquetball. Go check it out, josephskitchen.com. If you don't want to lose your life's savings, if you have an IRA or a 401k, the thing to do is call 800-200-GOLD. 800-200-GOLD. These folks are Christians, and they specialize in helping people not lose their life savings in the event of a stock market crash and things like that. Look, most of the 401ks, most of the IRAs are in paper, backed by paper, and as Lindsey Williams says, if it's in paper, it's worth the paper it's written on. You can lose it all. 1-800-200-GOLD. 800-200-GOLD. Hey, give them a call. Doesn't hurt, doesn't cost you anything. See if they can give you some good advice. We've got a new sponsor. It's sat123.com. Sat123.com. I'm amazed at what this company offers. They got satellite phones. They've got Wi-Fi hotspots where you can have internet any place. So suitcase nukes go off in your city. If you don't have to worry about that, you still have electricity. It can go right up and connect to a satellite. They also have marine satellite internet. They also have satellite radios so that you can talk back and forth, even though, in other words, it's not a phone, it's a radio, but it's satellite. So go check it out, satellite123.com. And if you use the promo code PROPHECY, there are several different kinds of discounts.